It was a cool spring night in rural Minnesota. The kind of night where the air is tinged with the earthy scent of thawing soil and damp alfalfa. And the only sounds are the hush of wind sliding over open fields and the occasional distant bark of a dog. A night so quiet, so still, it almost feels suspended in time. And somewhere in that stillness, a young man vanished. Brandon Swanson was 20 years old. Funny, kind, full of quiet ambition and dry humor. He had just finished a semester at college and he was heading home. Or so everyone thought. This is the story of one of the most mystifying disappearances in modern America. A case where the land seems to swallow the truth itself, where answers just seem to breed more questions, and where a mother still leaves the porch light on, just in case. Let's take it back to the night of May 13th, 2008. Brandon had been celebrating the end of spring semester with friends in Canby, Minnesota, a sleepy, close-knit town surrounded by a sea of farmland stitched together by dusty roads and endless fields of corn and soybeans. After midnight, he got into his car, a green Chevy Lumina, and set off toward his family's home in Marshall, about 30 miles away. But Brandon never arrived. Somewhere along the way, something went wrong. At 1:54 a.m., he called his parents. His voice was calm, collected, but clearly disoriented. He said he'd accidentally driven his car into a ditch. He wasn't hurt, he was just stuck. So, like any parents would, they jumped into their pickup and headed out to find him. But there was a problem. Brandon wasn't where he said he was. He thought he was near Lind, a small town just a few miles from home. But when his parents drove up and down those rural roads in the ink-black night, calling and flashing their headlights at him, there was no sign of Brandon. No car, no voice in the dark. They stayed on the phone with him for nearly 47 minutes. Brandon sounded frustrated, but not frightened. He told them he could see the lights of Lind in the distance. He said he'd walk toward them and they could just meet him there. He kept talking step after step, gravel and grass, sometimes irritated, sometimes joking. And then suddenly, he stopped. Until his voice cut back in with a sharp and alarmed, "Oh, shh!" Then nothing, just silence. The line remained open, but Brandon never spoke again. When daylight broke, the search began in earnest. But instead of finding Brandon near Lind, authorities discovered something strange. They located his car near Taunton, nearly 25 minutes in the opposite direction. It had rolled into a shallow ditch along a gravel road just outside the boundary of Lincoln County. A quiet, isolated stretch of countryside where the silence feels heavier than usual. And this quiet discrepancy changed everything. He hadn't been where he thought he was, not even close. This revelation rewrote the map of the search. It sent volunteers and deputies combing through endless miles of prairies, ditches, and fence lines. They searched with cadaver dogs, helicopters, infrared sensors, and even dive teams in nearby drainage creeks. The terrain was deceptively simple. Flat fields, rows of crops, rural roads. But the vastness was sinister. So much open space, so many places to vanish. At one point, dogs tracked Brandon's scent for nearly 3 miles through fields, along gravel roads, and past an abandoned farm building. But then, near the edge of the Yellow Medicine River, the trail simply stopped. As if he had stepped off the earth. Theories swirled like dust devils on a summer plain. Some people believed that Brandon stepped into the river and drowned. However, the river, though swift in places, was ultimately shallow, and it was meticulously searched. There was no trace of him, no phone, no wallet, nothing. Others speculated Brandon had suffered an accident elsewhere, perhaps struck by a passing vehicle or succumbed to hypothermia. But there were no signs, no drag marks, no blood, no disturbed brush. And Brandon was wearing jeans and a short-sleeved shirt. Not enough for a cold May night, but not enough to guarantee exposure either. Then there were the darker rumors, whispered suggestions of foul play. that someone may have come across him on the road, that someone or something may have frightened him in those final moments, that maybe he wasn't alone when he said, "Oh, but again, there was no evidence, only shadows and speculations. Even his phone, a vital, integral clue of this, offered nothing concrete. Authorities obtained cell tower data which confirmed that he was in the Taunton area when he called. But the signal path was narrow, fleeting, no location pings, no texts, just one long final call. For Brandon's parents, Brian and Annette Swanson, the world tilted off its axis that night and never quite righted itself again. They searched every day, every week, every season. Over the years, they have trudged through thick grass, brush, frosted ground, and suffocating summer heat to find a sign, a shoe, anything. They became experts in maps, terrain, river flow, and soil composition. But more than anything, they kept Brandon's name alive. Annette fought for new legislation, and she won. Brandon's law was passed in 2009, requiring law enforcement to begin immediate investigation when an adult is reported missing, regardless of age. Before that law, officers had initially dismissed Brandon's disappearance as just some college kid who'd wandered off, a mistake that they now admit cost precious hours. And so, the porch light stays on. Every night, without fail, because even now, more than a decade later, Brandon's mom refuses to give up hope. Maybe he's out there. Maybe he'll come home. Or maybe someone out there knows something. Maybe someone might come forward at some point. Perhaps they've kept something buried, like prairie secrets whispered by the wind. Brandon Swanson's case is simultaneously infuriating and mesmerizing. There were no enemies, no criminal past, no known reason for any single person to want to harm him. Just a young man heading home on a quiet night who walked into the dark and never came back. Perhaps he slipped into some forgotten crevice of land, a sinkhole, a drainage pipe, a place no one would think to look. Or perhaps, in his final breath, Brandon saw something none of us can explain. That last word echoes in every single theory. What was it that he saw? A strange animal? A stranger? Up the edge of a cliff? Or something else altogether? Something cosmic and otherworldly? We may never know. The prairie keeps its secrets close. So, if you ever find yourself driving the lonely back roads of southwestern Minnesota and the wind shifts and the corn rustles a little too suddenly, remember Brandon. He didn't run away. He didn't leave a note. He didn't have a plan. He was just a young man, tired, thoughtful, probably a little lost, just trying to get home. And somewhere out there in the flat emptiness of a spring night, he disappeared. Who knows? Maybe someday someone will speak. Maybe the land will eventually yield its truth. Until then, the light stays on, waiting, hoping for Brandon. If this story moved you in any way, make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel for more just like it, and turn on that notification bell so you never miss out ever again. And I want to give all of my love to our incredible donators. Thank you, Marissa Martinez and Kevin Corkill. If you would like to contribute to the channel as well, you can click the link in the description below and leave a donation. Every single bit counts and helps make these videos possible. So I truly, truly appreciate it. I'll see you next time, but until then, stay curious and more importantly, stay safe.